The following is a production of Salt and Light Radio in Boise, Idaho. Kick off your work boots and pull up a boulder. It's time for Man Cave, discussing the issues that affect Catholic men in today's culture. Grab your favorite beverage, pick out a comfy spot around the campfire, and enjoy today's conversation with our two favorite cavemen, Pat King and Brian Howe.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Pat King's Man Cave. Today I'm going to do you a solid and not be the one that does all the talking or be by myself. You'll have something better to look at. With me here is my good friend and guest from Ghana, Africa. We met in Rome. I had arrived in Rome on a Tuesday, 2019, November 2019. I can't remember the exact date, but it was just before Thanksgiving, that Tuesday before Thanksgiving, 2019. No, actually, I arrived on Monday. It was late, and my first full day was Tuesday. So I met him. I went to go get tickets at the, I forget what that office name is called. Do you remember the name of the office? It was the American Basilica's American office for Rome, for tourists to come to Rome to get things done. They would get tickets and make other arrangements. So they're an American. Geez, I wish I remember the name. I have to look it up. And anyway, so it's where you go if you're a tourist in Rome, and it's near the Trevi Fountains. So if you want to get tickets or get information, tour guides, they've got all sorts of maps and all sorts of information of where to find stuff. So I arrived late Monday afternoon, and I was tired, of course, because I traveled overnight, and get to Rome, get my hotel. I go out to eat. I get some sleep. The very next day, I knew that I had to go to this office to get, at that time before COVID, 150,000 people would show up to see the Wednesday audience at the Vatican. So if you had a ticket, you got earlier entry to go get seats. Otherwise, you were left out. They only allow so many to come in, and the rest are on the outskirts where the Pope Mobile drives by and he greets everybody. So I go. They say the office is open after lunch, and so I make my way down there. I took a bus to a certain level, and I walked, and I got there, and just a little before noon. And so I thought, okay, their office is going to open here pretty soon. And this man shows up in his collar, in his clerics, and he's thinking the same thing. They'll open their office after lunch, which is noon. They say lunch starts at 11. And so didn't say when they opened. They said after lunch. So he's on a classroom break. He's there from Ghana, Africa, studying in Rome. He's taking a class on safe environment for children and vulnerable adults. And it was his first semester of his first year. And he shows up, and we're sitting here waiting. It's now afternoon. The doors haven't opened. It's 12. We're talking. We're engaging in conversation, polite conversation, and we're waiting a little longer. So now we start talking a little more in depth. And our conversation, I'm a talker. That's why I do this podcast, because I talk and not afraid to talk. Father here, he's also a talker. He talk up a good storm, but he's such a joyful man. So we're talking, and he would ask questions, and I would ask questions, and so we're still waiting. We're standing the whole time, I think, because there was no place to sit. Yeah. And we're at the bottom of the stairs to this door, and we knock on the door, no one answers. We're trying to figure out, if anyone knows anything about Rome, there's a door outside that, like, door of a house, but it really only leads to an open courtyard and a hallway that leads to then offices. So if you're knocking on this door, no one really can hear you, because they're maybe in an office that's, quite a ways away. So finally someone comes. So in the meantime, we're talking, visiting. We knock on the door a couple of times. No one answers. And we're wondering when they're going to open up their office. And so this guy finally, you were there when he showed up, the guy that came. And I said, hey, are you opening the office? He said, oh, we don't open till 3 o'clock. I said, 3 o'clock? He says, yeah, they take long lunches here. And from 11 to 3, so 4 hours is when they're gone for lunch. And it's part of their tradition, it's part of their culture, and it's what they've done for years, so probably centuries. Mm-hmm. And so he tells me he's got to go back to class. He can't wait any longer. So you never did get tickets that day, did you?
No.
So anyway, he's getting ready to go, but we exchange phone numbers and contact information. And I tell him I'm going to be there for a couple months and I'm going to a CC and blah, blah, blah. And then he was going to be there and he'd like to come to a CC. So we exchanged phone numbers and that was it. He went back to class and I waited. I got my ticket. I don't think we saw each other for a while.
Yes.
But you did text me on WhatsApp. He uses the WhatsApp. And he sends me, this is Father Francis, we met, and here's my information. And so I had to download the WhatsApp. I didn't have the WhatsApp, but I had to download it to receive that message. So we do that, and we stay in communication somewhat. And then I go to the Wednesday audience, and then I go to a CC. I was there, like I said, just before Thanksgiving of 2019. And I hung around Rome until the 29th, I think, or 28th. Then I took a train to a CC, and I spent the next 3 weeks there. He still continued school until the Christmas break. And now I told him I was planning on coming back a couple days before Christmas to attend. I had tickets to go to Christmas Eve Mass. So I told him when I'd be back. And in the meantime, he said he'd like to come to a CC, but never could. I don't know why you couldn't, but he just couldn't make arrangements to get up there. And so we didn't meet in a CC. So on my return, I told him I'm back, and Father Francis here thought that, so I applied for tickets at 2 different locations to get tickets to go into Christmas Eve Mass. So if you want to travel and see Christmas Eve Mass months before you plan on going, and you're going to go, you have to request a ticket from the same office that we met at by the Trevi Fountain. Oh, I should have looked it up. I wish I could remember the name. It's the North American Pontifical Office. That's what it's called. And so when you travel and you got a plan to go, you want to go to Christmas Eve Mass, you're going to be in Rome during Christmas, and you want to go in, if you want to go in the Vatican, you actually have to have a ticket. They won't let you in without one because I think they can seat about 10,000 people, and they just don't let anyone in. You can get into the Vatican area, the piazza, to witness Mass on the screens outside, but you got to stand and stay outside. So now this is all still pre-COVID. So before we even knew anything about COVID. So I went to the Vatican website and applied for a ticket to Christmas Eve Mass. And I also went to the North American Pontifical Office to apply for a ticket. I was hedging my bets. It was the only 2 places I could go. You can apply at other, like other countries' places as well. But I didn't know them, so I figured I had a better shot at my own at the North American office and the Vatican. So I get a letter just before I leave. I don't know if I think I got both of them actually. I got one letter from the North American Pontifical Office saying I got a ticket in hand, and it's just a letter, and you say present that to receive your ticket. And then just before I was about ready to leave for my trip, I got another letter from the Vatican, and I still got that because it's an official letterhead which says Vatican Office, and it says that congratulations. I think it said congratulations, you have a ticket to attend. I only needed one, but I got 2. And it was a good thing this is how it all comes about. So I went to Assisi. I was there to write my book and travel around, but I loved Assisi. Assisi is probably one of my favorite towns, and it's also then I spent a weekend up at my family's house in northern Italy, in north of Trento. It's a little town called Magalo, and that's where my great grandfather was born, and then Revo was where my great grandmother was born. They didn't know each other. They weren't even married when they came to America. That's a story for another time. But so I was there. I've got cousins that live in Magalo and Cavarino, and so I've gone up to see them twice now. And we went to Bolzano for the Christmas market, and so I spent the weekend with them. One of those weekends while I was in Assisi. And that was quite a journey to get there. It should have been a 6-hour trip and ended up being like a 12 or 14-hour trip with delays and ambulance and things like that. I missed my train because of that. And so anyway, Father is back home. I'm in Assisi. I come back. I let him know. And we get together just before Christmas. You're on break. I think we toured around. We just walked around all over Italy. And I think that's when I went to your place, back to your college, and we had lunch with, was it lunch or dinner?
Yeah,
lunch. So we had lunch with the rest of his fellow priests that were living in this at the college. So it was nice, and he showed me. He was a big help to me because he learned the bus system, and so he taught me how to read the bus and follow the times and all that stuff, and how to read the little bus charts on the side. And so that was very helpful, because otherwise, if you don't understand it, you end up walking everywhere because you miss the bus, or the bus puts you in the wrong spot, you know. So I learned the bus system through Father Francis. So we're getting closer to Christmas Eve Mass, and Father, he's a smart guy, but naive sometimes. He thought that being a priest, he just got an automatic entry into the Vatican for Christmas Eve Mass. And they told him he can't go because he doesn't have a ticket. And he goes, but I'm a priest. He goes, that doesn't matter down there. You got to have a ticket. Because if you've ever been to Rome, there's priests all over the place, religious all over the place. And if they just got to go in, they'd be the only ones in there, and tourists won't be able to get in there. So he was concerned they wouldn't be able to go, because the plan was we were going to go together. And so, but fortunately, I had 2 tickets. So I gave him my other ticket. I thought about selling it and making a profit, but no, they're free tickets. You don't buy the tickets. So they're free. You just got to ask in advance, early enough. But you can ask too early too. So you got to ask. I think they open up requests about 2.5 months before the actual event. Yeah. So anyway, so I get him a ticket. We end up meeting to go together at the entrance of the Vatican. You're waiting in line, and you're waiting in line. So you wait in line, even though you have a ticket, there's still 10,000 people trying to get in. And it's funny how adults can behave, even grown adults. You're waiting in line, and we're hours before. I mean, we lined up about
3 hours before.
Was it 10 hours?
3 hours.
4 hours before.
Yeah.
So we go and get something to eat. We're walking around. We go and and the line's starting to build up. No, if you had a ticket, you had to go in this certain line first, because that was the direct access in. But you had to go through bag check and all that stuff. And I don't think people bring all their trinkets, because there'll be a blessing after the Mass for all the items, the sacramentals you brought with you to get blessed by Pope Francis. So everyone's got their bags full of stuff, and so they got to be inspected. You got to go through the safety protocols of like we do at the airport and stuff. And they got all those scanning machines and all that. So we're all lined up, and we're so close and standing for so long, we got to kind of know everybody around us. and the crowds are pushing in, and you don't leave your spot. You lose it. I mean, we're like sardines packed in there right now. Again, this is pre-COVID, so everyone's just like bumper to bumper. And we start talking to everybody around us and having fun and enjoying it. And it was all good. But as the gates start opening and you start getting through that security, and we were told, okay, so we had to go up so far and wait behind this line. And we were all waiting. But now I think the road that allowed that was like 20 feet wide. So you have all these people packed up in there. Now this is the only way in to the Vatican. And as soon as they open, they tell you to walk. But as soon as those gates, now we're kind of towards the front the whole time. We're kind of towards the front. It's amazing how far behind we end up because we didn't run like a sprint, but we kind of hustled. But it's amazing what a mad dash it was to get up those stairs, to get into the entry and get to chairs. So you have the center aisle and you have chairs on both sides, and you'd have people going to the left. I think there's allowing people on the left side as well. So we had people on the right, people on the left, and you had to go get a seat. Now, most people tried to run all the way to the front, and it's the chairs, the aisles are narrow, so we get close, and as we see that more people are going to the front, I look at Father. He was tailing behind me because for some reason I was moving faster than he was, which is odd because I'm much bigger than he is. So I look and I think, oh, no one's on these aisle seats. I mean, there's a barricade. There's a curtain covered aisle seat by the chairs, and that's where the Pope and everybody walks up. The dignitaries all walk up and down, and so I looked. We got about midway down, and I looked and said, "Let's go that way." And we made a beeline towards this side because I want to be on an aisle. I want to be close to the aisle, and so I take one row and he takes another, and I think you're just a row or two behind me, second row behind me. So we beeline it, and we get the aisle seats right by the curtain, right by the barricade. And so I was so close that when the Pope walked by, I really could have reached out and touched him if it wasn't for all those guys in the black suits that were in between me and him and would have probably taken my arm off and thrown me out if I did that. So I didn't, but I was able to get everybody walking up and down. It was unobstructed view. It was pretty cool. So we get in there, and it's just amazing, all the people scrambling towards the front and filling in. And it didn't take long for all those chairs to be taken. Now, some people would save, a chair for a friend or something like that, but there's like 40, 50 people in this row of chairs. And so I'm glad I was at where I was at. It was hard when it was communion service because I was at the end row and everybody had to go by me. So that's how we get into Christmas Eve Mass, and it was beautiful. It was worth the effort, and I was grateful that I had an extra ticket to give to someone worthy of a ticket. And anyway, so then after that, we met several other times and walked around the city and toured around and did that up until the day I left on a cruise. But he went back to school early January. I left for a cruise, Mediterranean cruise around the, I believe the 12th or 14th of January. And I have another friend that's down there, Sergio, I spent time with as well. I'd go to see movies because he, again, was studying and had other obligations. So anyway, so I had a couple people I palled around with and went to movies with and had fun with. So anyway, that's kind of how we met. And then when I came back to the States and he was actually in Italy when COVID broke out. And then...
No, I went back 2 weeks to COVID.
Yeah, after it broke out, you were sent back home because he would have been stuck there.
Yeah.
So he went back to Ghana to preach, to be a priest, and wait for everything to clear up for him to get so he was in his first semester of his first year and was starting the second part of his second semester of his first year before when COVID broke out that he was sent home. So, and then he couldn't return until just a couple years ago. But when I returned and he returned, we started communicating through WhatsApp, and he'll tell a lot of the other story after that. So, so here, even though I told a little brief story of how we met, he's going to talk about his priesthood, his early days, how he became a priest. He wasn't even a Christian before he became a priest. So he's going to talk about his early age, how he lived, the traditional African religion. He'll explain a little bit about that. And so welcome, Father Francis, to the show. Father, so start off by telling me a little bit about where you lived and how you lived, the conditions and all that stuff.
Thank you so much, Pat, for this opportunity. I would first of all like to express my gratitude to the Bishop of the Diocese of Boise, Most Reverend Christian Peter, the parish priest of Our Lady of the Valley, Father Hossein, and his vicar, Father Herman. Then I thank my friend Pat and the Knights of Columbus of the parish of Our Lady of the Valley, and the parishioners. In fact, I have been received so well. I feel at home. I'm so happy to be in the United States and to be in the parish, to enjoy the environment, the weather. My first time was seeing snow. It has been beautiful. Thank you so much, Pat, for this opportunity.
He first got out the airplane.
Yes.
There was snow as we were getting to our car, and he couldn't wait to grab some snow. And it's so cold.
Yeah, and I thank the Salt and Light Radio for giving me the opportunity to also have this experience. Yes, as Pat said, I'm called Francis. My father is Adagyine from Ghana, the northern part of Ghana. And I grew up in a purely traditional home, an African traditional home. In Africa, we have what we call the Africa traditional religion. This religion is not Christianity, it's not Buddhism, it's not Judaism. It is a religion in its own. And that's where I was born. My parents, my family members.
Did you go to a church service? Was
No.
there no gathering?
No. This is just for Africans. We have a way of worshiping our gods.
Okay.
We consult, we go out to consult what we call soothsaying. Then when you go out to do the soothsaying, you are told by the soothsayer that your father or great grandfather wants you to build him and to sacrifice. So you come and build the god, and then you sacrifice to it, and that's your religion. Use animals, goat, cow, hen, cock, all kinds of animals to sacrifice. Then use the blood on it. Then you use also flour mixed with water and sacrifice. So before we will start to plant, we sacrifice to our God to ask them to help us have good yield, to plant well. After harvesting, we do same. We sacrifice to them to thank them, and we call this one Adakoe, to thank them for what they did for us, to be able to cultivate and get good yield. So that was the religion I found myself. So I never knew anything about Christianity, about Catholicism. And so we were always as children in this religion. So they could sacrifice, our parents would sacrifice the animals, and then would take them and dress them and prepare them, cook, and then they will share the meat. This was the religion that I was born into. So the African religion, the culture is such that you are one. My brother's children are my children, and then my children are also his children. So you come to the African home, you may not even know whose child is this, because you live together. And a man could have many wives, could have 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on your capacity.
Oh, multiple wives.
Okay. And they'll have many children. So you come, you don't even know whose child is this, whose mother is this. So they are living together, and we could eat together from one bowl. About 10 children, or 7 or so, 5, they will prepare food. Our traditional food is called TZ. You prepare it and give it to you. You sit around the bowl, about 10, 5, 7 children, and eat. And that unites the family. Yes, so you have that love for each other. You don't eat one by one. You have to.
Do the adults eat out of a different bowl, or do they?
Just one bowl. You have one bowl, a bowl for the TZ, the main food, a bowl for the soup.
So even the parents are eating out of that same bowl?
No, the parents will just give it to you, the children. They will also eat it separately. The parents could also have a bowl for themselves.
For themselves, okay.
Yes, yeah. So this was the culture I was brought.
I don't like sharing my food, just so you know. I mean, it's like my bowl, my bowl.
Okay. So I never went to church. Then, in fact, my elder sisters, they were the first to go to church from the family.
To what church?
Catholic church.
Catholic church.
Yes.
So how did she become Catholic?
Yes, through friends. She saw her friends who were going to
in the big city, or
no, it's my
just
my
in your village.
Yeah, my village is when I talk of a village, it's a place that you don't have access to many things. We didn't have electricity in my village. It wasn't there. Now that we are not getting it. But we didn't have electricity. We didn't have water, good drinking water. We used to drink from the river. And I drank from the river. Yes, as I grew up. We didn't have for roads. No, nothing. So we were walking. There's nothing in the village. I mean, to talk of roads or talk of good drinking water, no. We depended so much on fruits, tree fruits. Could go into the bush to look for fruits to eat. These were some of the things that kept us.
Okay, and what was the housing like?
Yes,
is it a house like us, our house? Or?
No, the house of the African is made of mud.
Oh, made of mud.
Mud. So you put the mud together, then you build it. So it's not strong. And then you roof it.
And if it rains, does it wash away?
It falls.
Yeah,
so usually around July, August, where we have torrential rains, heavy rains, many of our homes collapse. Then we have to rebuild in the dry season. So this is where I grew up. And so it wasn't something that was so nice. No, we were struggling with this, but we kept on.
But that was life.
That was life. That was the only thing we had.
Yeah.
So we were happy living that life. The culture is so much about love. We live in communities, communal living.
But they were large. Were they compounds? Were they?
Yes.
Did they surround and then
yes.
you ate?
You have round rooms because the children are many.
Okay.
And you have one compound. So you are all living. It's round like this. You have the rooms like this, small. Then inside is a compound.
So all of like his dad and his dad's brother would live, and the family was all in.
All.
Yes. That was the family. That was the religion. Also, was that family.
Yeah.
So
worship the religion in that family, and everybody was mandated to worship that.
Yeah.
You couldn't, as a child, do otherwise. Otherwise, if you refused, you might not even be given food.
Wow.
Yes, they will say you are disobeying your parents. Your parents are following this religion, this culture. You must also follow that. If you refuse, okay, we don't have food.
Maybe we should tell our kids today, if they don't go to church, they don't get to eat. Maybe that'd help out a lot.
One, even though that was the culture, but it's also abusive.
Yeah,
you don't refuse a child's food because of that.
I know.
I
know. Please forgive me. Yes.
So that was how we grew up. We farm. I did what we call labor, manual labor. I go to the farm with my father, even below the age.
Did your father own the farm, or did
Yes,
you?
my
Okay.
father, and then my father, my uncles, they had farms. So granite farms, we had millet farms, rice farms. I would go with them. At the age of 12, 13, I started to learn how. Even though that somehow, I would say, if you want to consider it, some of them were abusive, but
No.
that was the only thing we
chores are
had.
chores.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you didn't do that, you wouldn't get food to eat. So you help your parents or fathers to farm. You go and do manual work.
But you
real
still
work.
went to school and you got fed, so that was the way it worked.
Yes. So as we were doing that, and as I said, I was a shepherd. I followed cattle. I went to school very early, but then when I got P3, I left and I was following cattle. And during that time, I did a lot of things, following sending the cattle to the grasslands, to the forest, to graze and all that. Rain beat us. It rained, and anytime it was raining, you were not allowed to bring the cattle inside because it is not night. So the rain beat us while we were outside and taking care of the cattle. And that is the experience of the typical African. So I was following my cattle. And
how old were you when you were doing the cattle?
Yeah, I would say I was around 12, thereabout.
Okay.
Yes.
And you stopped going to school so you could follow.
Yes, yes.
And you got paid for following. No.
These were.
You just got to eat.
Yes, I got to eat. They'll give me food. That was what. Yes. Yeah. So that is the duty of the child. You have to take care of the cat.
But you didn't want to go to school. Your parents still wanted you to go to school.
They wanted me to go to school, but I didn't want to go. So
why was school important for your parents? Was it going to help you get to better things?
Yes, my parents saw that they were not educated.
Okay.
But they saw people of their age whose parents who went to school, even though there were not many, but they were doing well because they were working.
Doing better.
So they thought that if I went to school, I would also work in the future. That was their reason. But I said no, because I saw other people who were not going to school, and they were somehow prosperous in terms of economic.
Well, it just goes to show you, no matter what culture you're in,
yes,
parents always want better things for their kids.
Children.
Yes, for their children. So that's interesting.
So
go ahead.
So as I was following my cattle, it was until 1997, where in October, the Rosary Month.
Okay, so were they missionaries? What brought Catholicism to your village or your area?
Yes.
Were they like monks? Were they religious sisters? Were they men?
Yeah.
Religious monks, priests? What?
Yes.
What came in, and were they evangelizing? Is that what they were doing?
Yes. The Catholic Church came to my diocese, the Diocese of Novrongo Bolgatanga, in the northern part of Ghana, in 1906. And so 1906, they were evangelizing. They were expanding. They came to my own town 1925. That is the town. But they got to my village later. So my village was part of an outstation. So they used to come there and pray, and it became a parish. So they kept on with that tradition. Every October, the people will come, Catholics will come to pray the rosary and play we had local drums to dance. The culture of Africa, worship God in dancing, in singing.
Dancing.
Yes.
Very big.
Yes. So that makes us to have long masses, because people want to spend time to thank God in their being, in their dances. That's how they see, they thank God. Because in Africa, a king is, when he's going out in the northern part of Ghana, he rides on a horse, and his entourage follow, and people are in front with drumming and dancing to show that this is a great man. In the southern part, he rides in what we call palanquin. They carry him. And then people are behind and in front dancing. So the African Africans then say that God is greater than these people. So we must dance to express his greatness, His power, His might. So in the Mass, people want to dance and thank God for who He is.
So go back to your sister getting
yes.
involved.
So in 1997, when they came to pray the rosaries and they were playing drums, so we decided as young people to just go and see what they were doing. So when we went, they were playing, but they needed somebody to play because they were not up to the number. So my sisters knew that I could play because I was a shepherd, and that is cultural. I knew all those things. So my sisters then suggested to the people, let's tell him he will come and help us. So they told me, my sisters, one is called Elizabeth, one is called Felicia. So they said, okay, the people want you to come and help. Can you help? So I went and I played. And it was nice. They played where they danced, they sang, and they told me.
So much joy.
Joy.
Yeah.
They said, you can do like this, and why are you not going to church? So it was a Saturday, so the next day was Sunday, and they were now going to church to thank God because they had gathered millet, granules in the rosary prayer. They were now going to give it to the priest and thank God for that. So they said they needed to still dance and go to church, so I should come and help them play and they would dance. I agreed. So I followed them. We got to the church. In 1997, I entered the church and I saw the priest. He's called Father Gabriel at the door. Yes. And then the Mass service, and I was attracted.
It inspired you.
Yes, I was inspired. So I said, I would like to be like this Mass service. They were wearing red.
Now,
and if possible,
I want to go back to, you told your parents why you didn't want to go to school. This is very important because he told you, what did you tell your parents? They wanted you to go to school, but you said, no, you want to follow cattle, but you want to be a what?
Yeah, I said I just wanted to be follow cattle, and I believe I will be prosperous because one of my cousins who didn't go to school, may he rest in peace, he's called Baba. He was dealing with cattle. He was he was a trader. He was traded in cattle and all that, but he wasn't educated. So he was doing well. So I used it as an example. I said I didn't need to go to school, but I would be better in future.
But you want to be a shepherd.
Yes.
A shepherd of cattle.
Cattle, yes.
So this is it's key. So he told his parents that he was going to be a shepherd.
Yeah.
And it's key for the rest of the story.
Yes.
Because he told that in the radio show, and so I want to get back to it.
Yeah.
But you go to Mass and you see what the priest is doing, and you say, I want to be that.
Yes. So I saw that was a dramatic change, a divine intervention. So instead of saying, I want to be a shepherd, God says, okay, you will be a shepherd, but in the true sense, you'll be a shepherd of what? My flock. So it inspired me to become a priest. So after the Mass, I told my sisters I wanted to join the Mass service. And so my sister went to the Mass service and asked their leader. And he asked whether I was in school because their meetings were normally held in English.
You didn't speak English?
I didn't speak English because I had stopped schooling. I was now following cattle. So he said, in order to join, I needed to go back to school. So I then said, okay, I'll go back. So I went home, told my parents I wanted to go back to school. My parents were shocked. By then, I should have been around 15 years or even more. I was grown, 1997. So they were shocked. They were also happy that, okay, if now I've agreed to go to school, they believe that I will be able to do it. So they said, okay.
Did you say anything about why you want to go back to school? Because you want to be a priest? And they were
not necessarily to be a priest at that moment.
Okay.
But that I went to church and I saw something.
Yeah.
That I want to
be better than what you were doing.
Yes.
Okay.
So they agreed. So I went back. I went to school, and then of course when I entered, I just went to class 5. If I was grown, but I didn't understand anything they were teaching. So the teacher would just write on the board and I copy everything. But gradually, I understood. Then I went to P6. Then I went to what we call Form 1. Yeah, junior high school.
Junior high school, okay.
Then from there, we finished and I wrote. the entrance exams to the minor seminary in my diocese called Notre Dame Major Seminary Secondary School. That was where I went. And then, in fact, as I was in the minor seminary, I would say my vocation story then grew, because that was where I was inspired more. As I saw priest, then I was inspired more. And when I completed,
it's fair to say that we should tell you, Ghana was a British colony, right?
Yes.
And so English was the language.
English
what they taught was in English.
Official, lingua franca.
Yeah, but you didn't understand it because you didn't go to school.
Yes.
So you just lacked that.
Yes.
You could speak it, but you didn't.
I couldn't even speak it.
Oh, you couldn't even speak it.
I couldn't.
Okay.
Because you needed formal education to be taught. I only spoke my local language.
So you see the priest.
Yes.
You want to know more. You want to kind of be what he's doing.
Yeah.
And yet you don't even have a basic education. You don't speak the language.
Yeah.
And yet you are still called to want to at least check it out. At least.
Yeah.
So you go back to school. That's awesome.
Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Man Cave, a weekly podcast discussing the issues that affect Catholic men in today's culture. A production of Salt and Light Radio in Boise, Idaho. To learn more about our ministry, please visit our website, saltandlightradio.com.